Good morning, everyone. I hope you hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Good morning, Mr. Ais. We can hear you very well.
Loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you. You are welcome. So, in this beautiful morning, Saturday, 4th January 2023, the Democratic Arabic Center, based in Germany, in collaboration with University of Benghazi and the Teaching and Learning and Teaching Innovation Research and Development organization in Ankara, Turkey, we are pleased to run this first international webinar on issues in ESP Class, local and international perspectives. Happy again to welcome our honorary committee, Dr. Amal Ben Yahya and Dr. Multim Hart Baturi. Also to welcome the webinar chair, Dr. Fouzia Rouaghe, and the webinar moderator, Dr. Radia Bouguebs. Hope we can exchange, present new issues, and talk about this subject this morning. I welcome again our viewers on Facebook, because we are running this webinar live on Facebook. Thank you again on the name of Ammar Sharhan, the president of the Democratic Arabic Center. Pleased to welcome you again, and I give the floor to Dr. Fouzia Rouaghe for the welcome speech.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ais, for this warm introduction. And of course, it's really wonderful to meet you all up virtually, and particularly you, Dr. Ais, for your help and assistance. Dr. Ammar Sharhan, the president of the Democratic Arabic Center, Dr. Ahmed Bouhko for his aid as well, and his unconditional assistance. Actually, this event wouldn't have been possible without the help and cooperation of many parties, namely the speakers who have accepted to participate in this webinar. David Perodin from the US, who is based in Thailand, Karen Meyers from Belgium, and who is based in, Professor Karen, who is based in South Africa, Dr. Wafa Warniqi from Jaffa University, Algeria, Tony Ger from the UK, who is based actually in Turkey, and last but not least, MLZ, the last speaker from Algeria University of Msila. Without forgetting, of course, to thank the event moderator, Dr. Radia Bouguebs, for having accepted to moderate this event, and for her endless support and encouragement to the honorary committee, Professor Meltem from Turkey, who is also the president of Latin Group, and Amal Ben Yahya from the Teacher Training College from Constantine, Algeria. Without forgetting, of course, the attendees who wake up in the morning on the weekend day. Of course, I'm very thankful to them. Actually, the idea of this webinar flashed upon my mind when the Ministry of Higher Education introduced or gave instruction to introduce English into the higher education and use it as a medium of instruction to teach subjects which already, initially were taught in Arabic and French. Actually, this created a kind of controversy after this ministerial decision. And there are some protagonists and antagonists to this decision, and there is a kind of dispute in Algeria nowadays. And this is why I have decided to invite some speakers to gather some views from international and the national perspective. And inshallah, we're end and come to close and finish with some solutions and some recommendations and suggestions in order to mediate this kind of dispute here in Algeria. Thank you all for watching us also on Facebook live. If you have any question, of course, drop a comment and I'll be ask the speakers to answer them. So now I hand over the floor to the webinar, to the webinar moderator, Radia Bouguebs. Radia, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Fouzia. Thank you, Dr. Aish. So pleased and honored to be among my dear colleagues from national and international settings. Of course, the topic and the theme of this webinar is of a great interest for us, we teachers, for practitioners. We almost are asking questions and trying to find solutions for them, trying different approaches, different techniques, but still we need more and more because things are changing, the teaching environment is changing, the demands are increasing. I am so pleased to moderate this scientific gathering. I would like to express my thanks to my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Fouzia Rouaghe, for giving me this opportunity to share and have from my other colleagues, because I need to know more also, because it's a topic of interest for all of us. I'm pleased, of course, to moderate this webinar whose main theme is to dig deep in some issues that are currently occurring while doing our job in a classroom. Okay, those issues that sometimes create an obstacle and a barrier for us, we teachers. Today, it's an enormous opportunity for us to share with other colleagues from international and of course local settings. They will five respected keynote speakers will give us and share with us their expertise in this field. I would like to welcome the attendees also who will benefit a lot from the questions and from mainly the debates that we raise after each presentation. Well, before starting the session, I would like to raise some important or review some tips so that we can benefit from the time allocated for each of us. So each keynote speaker will benefit from 30 minutes. I'd like that you respect your time. 10 minutes is for the debate, of course. Would you please keep yourself muted for creating important mood for the speaker, for the presenter. All your questions are welcome. Would you please insert them in the chat box? And of course, the speakers or the presenters will for sure answer your requests and all your issues. Time to start, and of course we will start with the first keynote speaker, Dr.
David Perrodin.
Yeah. David Perrodin, who will present something of a great interest entitled Heading in the Right Directions with Vocational English Curriculum. But before giving you, David, the floor, I'd like to introduce you to the attendees. Dr. David Perdin is an English language specialist at the Institute for Population and Social Research in the English Social Research Mahidol University in Bangkok, Thailand. He is also the journal manager and copy editor for the top-tier Q2 Scopus Indexed Journal of Population and Social Studies with the same institute. In addition to being the recipient of several prestigious international teaching awards for his contribution to global education, he has acquired exemplary teaching qualifications and certifications along with a Bachelor in Secondary Education with honors and a Master of Arts in Teaching with honors with the concentration in English. He is currently a doctoral candidate in the final semester of pursuing a PhD in Applied Linguistics for English language teaching at King Mongots, sorry if I misspell the name of the University of Technology, Thonburi, Thailand. So welcome, David, and the floor is yours.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Host, please allow me to share my screen.
Sure, yeah, the floor is
No,
yours.
I mean, no, it says host disabled participant screen sharing. I am unable. Oh, there you go. Okay, so, okay, great. Someone did it. Okay, just very, very quickly before I begin, Dr. Fouzia, you know, you are one of the best communicators. Every question I have had, whatever contact I had with you has been professional, has been organized, has been timely. The language you use, and you're just amazing. I want to say that before I begin. And Professor, sorry?
Yeah, please. Nobody told you before that you have a sense of humor. You just make me laugh after every message you sent me.
Yeah, you know, I mean, look, we communicate about, you know, I communicate with hundreds of people every week, and it is a joy to communicate with people like you who can chuckle. So many academics, we think that we are above and beyond humor. Oh, just by the way, I'm very American. You know, I have my timer, so don't worry about it. You know, I know my 30 minutes. Oh, and one thing, Professor Karen, South Africa. My goodness, I am dying for a braai broodjie. I need a braai broodjie. Lekker. Oh, goodness.
We'll get you a sandwich during a barbecue. We'll do that one day.
Oh, yeah, but I want the real braai broodjie with the butter on the outside and the inside. My goodness. Okay. Well, I have a lot of South African friends, so that's why I know. Yeah. Okay. Well, before I begin, I wanted to say, you know, just thank you. The communication is great. Now, very, very quickly, I'm going to talk about some things that I've learned, well, in my career, my very lengthy career, but most of all, over the past year, for 1 year, I spent time with 300 airline staff, people who work in the airlines, cabin crew and ground staff. And we had, my goodness, so many focus group discussions about English language use and vocational English. And the discussions always went to, they just naturally went to what could have been done, during your education, tertiary education specifically, to prepare you for the real world. So when I was asked to speak about English curricula or vocational English curricula, I said, well, this is fitting because we just finished data collection. We just finished at the middle of December of last year. So I'm about to share with you what I learned. And yes, you did pronounce the name of the university rather well, King Mongut University. Very, very good. Most people have difficulty with Mongut. So let me quickly prepare you, give you a little bit of background information about the vocational English arena, okay, or what happens with vocational English. For the past two decades, yes, for a little more than 20 years now, international companies have been complaining a little bit that higher education is not preparing graduates for the real workplace. And you know, like what was discussed earlier, in some countries where English is a second language or a foreign language, sometimes people, education stakeholders, government, students, teachers, parents, they have these discussions about, well, do we really need to be teaching English in our schools? Well, English is not important. Our students, if they live in Thailand or if they live in Algeria, why do they need to learn English? They speak Thai already, or they speak Arabic already, or they speak French already. Well, what they fail to realize is that whether they like it or not, English is the lingua franca. English is the language of the majority of the world's business, the language of medicine, the language of education, and the language of airlines. So now, career and technical education programs and even traditional tertiary programs, they are supposed to be preparing young people for the future, but you know, they're really not. They're just kind of preparing students to take tests. You know, when young people come up to me, young people, I can say young people. When you get a half a century old, you can say young people because most people are young people. When young people come up to me and they say, oh, Ajahn is teacher in Thai. They say, teacher or lecturer or professor, can you help me prepare for TOEFL, TOEIC, IELTS test? Yes, sure. Oh, I just want to study grammar. And you know, they just want to pass the test. There's no idea or concept of anything further than passing that test. So education is just preparing test takers. It's not preparing students for the future. And the reason why we know this is because just recently, a comprehensive report by one of the United States' most prestigious management firms said that by 2030, more than 85 million jobs will go unfulfilled because this generation of students, they're just not prepared. 85 million jobs equates to $85 trillion. $85 trillion. So if anyone debates, well, what is the need for English? What is the need for preparing internationally capable workforces? Well, you tell them, money. Hey, money. Now, governments and organizations, they have tried to take steps to prepare. They really have. They have tried to educate, train, and upskill their workforce, and schools and universities and higher education. They really have tried to develop life skills and work skills, but they've just tried. They're going about it from a very antiquated worldview. very antiquated mindset. And we know this because even after all these years, the language proficiency in most industries is very low. Harvard Business Review just not too long ago published the workforce English proficiency by industry. Now, I work with aviation a lot, and I work with education. Well, that's my livelihood. And when I saw that aviation is one of the lowest ranked proficiencies in industries, and when I saw education, how low education is ranked, I was a little bit devastated, to be honest. Education, logistics, my goodness, logistics is international, but yet logistics has the lowest English proficiency index, or the lowest English proficiency rating. That's scary. Now, around the world, companies and industries, they're recognizing that, hey, you know what? Our workforce must have a higher proficiency or in a lingua franca or a common language. Well, the CEO of Rakuten, Hiroshima Mikitani, said that there are some benefits of Englishnization. Englishnization. I love that word. I really wish that word would be used more in research, but it's kind of a catchphrase. So Englishnization, I love it. And if we look at some fairly recent workforce English proficiency by country, we find that, yep, Thailand, where I work, it's always in the very low proficiency ratings. I mean, even the latest 2020, the latest English first ratings, Thailand is always somewhere at the back end, always. And my goodness, Thailand spends a lot of money on education, but yet they're using antiquated pedagogies that they're just not working. And how do we know this? Because business leaders are telling us that we need strong English skills. We need strong English skills. If we want to buy and sell to a more diverse range of customers, we need English skills. Now, here is my point. Heading in the right direction with vocational English curricula. Now, I have spent 10 minutes sort of forgive the slight negativity, but the point is, across the globe, developing countries are countries where English is in debate, right? English education is still being debated. Well, it's being debated because the people who are doing the debating are coming from a worldview or a viewpoint of English education that's antiquated. The pedagogies that they are using, they're not critical pedagogies. They're antiquated pedagogies, the memorization type pedagogies, the rote learning, these things, the grammar translation methods that were used in the 60s and 70s. That's how they think English should be taught and learned. And we know that's not how it should be taught and learned. Because even though those methodologies have some good points, they're not inclusive. So let's look at some points that I learned this past year from people working in a vocation where English is predominant, the airline industry. And I will share with you what they said, and also what research shows that the way English should be taught, the way curricula should be developed. Okay, let's go. Now, one thing that sticks out quite a bit is utilizing the real world. Okay, look, the truth is, lecturers, teachers working in higher education, we might have a tremendous amount of knowledge and theoretical knowledge about our subject, But you know, we don't work in the real world. When I wanted to know about English for the airline industry, I spoke to people who worked in that industry. When I wanted to learn about English for whatever industry during my career, I would spend time with those people. And I would also invite those people who have worked in industries where they must use English for intercultural communication, where they use English and they face real world scenarios. I would invite those people to come to my class, and speak to my students and say, listen, this is how it is in the real world. In the airline industry, you are going to meet people from every nationality you can imagine, from every first language you can imagine, every accent you can imagine, everything. You are going to meet people from all across the world. And you're not taught how to handle this. When you take a 4-year degree in aviation management or in tourism, you're not taught how to handle these things. So we need to utilize the real world. We need to bring in people that understand how English is used. Don't be afraid. Let me see. Okay, now we need to use people that have experience. Expose learners to the real world. Expose them. Because let me tell you, some countries offer internships, and I hear this all the time in every industry. Well, the students who are doing the internships, they can't even have a simple conversation in English. So instead of their internships being valuable, and instead of their internships being useful, they're stuck doing things, just these menial jobs. Now, oh, hello. Using English to communicate with the world. Look, I have all the time, teachers tell me, well, I cannot use English in my class with my English majors because they're just not good at English. Well, let me tell you this. Our students must be equipped. They must overcome the fear and the anxiety that they have. Yes, everyone in the world has foreign language anxiety. You should see me when I speak Thai, or when I speak French, or when I speak Spanish, or when I clumsily try to speak Indonesian or Filipino. I freeze sometimes because of anxiety. We need to expose our students to communicating with the real world so they can overcome these issues. Social media, video sharing platforms, things such as this. Absolutely. Now, the reality is our students, they must be able to develop critical thinking skills and communication skills to survive. If we do not equip them, then who will? Now, see, everyone thinks, well, you know what? Let me preface my statement. I ask my students, I ask the individuals in the airline industry. I said, okay, what do you think? What do you think is the most challenging point of communicating in English? They all said, well, it's grammar. Okay, what part of grammar? Grammar is the system of language. Give me something specific. Overwhelmingly, they said verb tense. Oh my goodness, there are 12 verb tenses. We don't know how to use them all. I said, hey, look at my face. Look at my blue passport. I am a native English speaker. Do you really believe I use 12 verb tenses on a daily basis? I write academic articles. How many verb tenses do I use in academic writing? 3. How many verb tenses do I use in daily conversation? 3, maybe 4. When I'm talking to my wife on the phone, I'm using present continuous. I'm driving, I'm reading, I'm speaking, I'm doing something. Other than that, simple past, simple present, simple future. It's not any more complicated than that. So they also told me that they have difficulty with vocabulary and with some accents. Then I showed them this. You know, if you want to use global English or vocational English in your working environment, focus on intelligibility. Focus on speaking as clearly as you can. That's it. And comprehensibility. Just get your message across. Use the vocabulary that you have and communicate. So if we can speak reasonably clear and use vocabulary appropriate for that situation, there you go. That's all they need. But what happens in vocational English, we focus on things that are really not used in the real world. The 12 verb tenses. Oh my goodness, listen, if you ask me to rattle off the 12 verb tenses right now, no, I can't do that. Why would I want to? So now, I also tell them that I also tell teachers when I do training about vocational English that the students, they want to know life skills. They want to know they want to know how to solve problems. They want to know how to collaborate. And vocational English curricula should develop these higher order thinking skills within the students. And we should develop vocational English skills to where the students, they can work with other cultures and other people. You know, I have some difficulty sometimes. My students are sometimes afraid to work with people from other religions, other nationalities, other ethnicities. And I ask them, what do you think is going to happen? Oh, well, I don't want to offend them. Well, I tell my students just straight, listen, everyone understands. Everyone understands if you are Buddhist and they are Muslim or they are Christian. Everyone understands if you're male, they're female, or they do not want to reveal their gender to you. It doesn't matter. None of this matters. You communicate the best you can, and if the listener thinks you made a mistake, well, they need to relax, because listener effort is another big part of communication. You need to listen. You need to understand if this person says sir or Mr. or hey you, they're not being rude. They're doing the best that they can. And this has to be discussed and learned through life skills. So what I do, I focus on task-based learning. Task-based learning is beautiful for learning vocational English. Set up tasks to where your students have to communicate with individuals from other nationalities or other language users or other ethnicities. Let them become comfortable with speaking to people who are different than them. Different. So see, look, our students, they must be coached. I'm using the word coached. They don't need to be taught, because teaching to so many of us teachers, teaching means that we stand in front of a classroom and we yammer blah, blah, blah for 3 hours. That was one thing that was actually brought up in my research. They said the lecturers talk too much and do not give us enough tasks. We have less tasks, and we have to listen to the lecturers talk. Yeah, we need to stop that. The power of stories. Oh, I love stories. I love to tell stories. In my classes, our students, they must tell stories about their jobs, their study, something. If they tell stories, because these stories are authentic to them, they know about themselves. They already have the knowledge. So they just need to use the language to communicate what they already know. That's easy. And I bring in people from industries to tell stories, to tell real life stories about what happens in the job, what happens in those industries. They're great. Stories, the power of stories. We need to tell more stories. I love it. Now, inclusion and well-being. Okay, I'm nearing the end. I still have about 5 minutes left of my presentation. I try to throw this in near the end of my presentation because sometimes people do not like to hear this. Inclusion and well-being. Okay. Just because someone is different from you, they have a different religion or a different culture or a different language or a different ethnicity or a different gender or a different lifestyle, it doesn't mean that they are better or worse than us. And that's something that your students need to learn, especially in patriarchal societies or societies that are heavily based in a particular religion. When our students leave the shelter of their culture and they go out in the real world, they still judge everyone by what they think is correct. Look, vocational English, we need to encourage critical pedagogy. We need to encourage pedagogies that say, listen, just because someone is different from you doesn't mean they're right or wrong, good or bad. They're just different. And we need to respect this diversity, and we need to understand that it doesn't matter. None of this matters. We need to get along. We need to include everyone. And that's for our well-being and the well-being of others within that industry. So we need to promote inclusion and acceptance, especially from underrepresented groups. I do a lot of research with underrepresented groups. Women tend to fall into this group in so many cultures, and children and religious minorities or people of different skin colors. Look, my goodness, this is a big world. We have 8 billion people. Our students need to understand that English broadens their mind and closes these gaps. They need to learn that, and that's where we come in. So look, to do that, we need to provide our students with practical ideas that support and maintain how to exist and survive and thrive in diverse employee groups. We need to break down these barriers. I know. So many people, I get so much grief about this. Well, that's not our religion. That's not our this and this and this. Look, in the international workforce, no one cares. People just want to get along, and they want professional relationships. And we need to help our students understand how to nurture these professional relationships. And English closes these gaps. So vocational English curriculum, this should be a real big point. So, and ready for the next normal. Look, I'm not going to go into this because, to tell you the truth, I'm tired of hearing about the coronavirus. Look, the coronavirus left its mark on the world, and it's still around. And we just need to know. We need to know that we see the world differently. We really do. And the world is a small place now. Look, we are using Zoom, and there are several of us in this program right now, and we're from all over the world. Before the coronavirus, yeah, things like this happen sometimes, but not very much. Now, well, my goodness, I can tell you, and I'm not proud of this. I'm just telling you, I have done nearly 300 300 keynote speeches, plenary speeches, featured speeches. Thank you, coronavirus. I would never have met all the people who I have met. So, but our students, they need to learn how to embrace an intercultural community. They need to learn how to communicate. And that has to be part of the curriculum. See, the truth is, like Mark Van Doren said, the art of teaching is the art of assisting discovery. And we must use these tools that I shared with you to develop vocational English curricula. Yes, it is painful. Yes, some of us are Generation X or Generation Y. And sometimes we don't want to do things that make us feel uncomfortable. Well, you know what? As teachers, we must continually be uncomfortable. That means we're growing and learning and accepting Generation Z and millennials and Generation Alpha, because they learn differently. And if we do not prepare them for the real world, then maybe we're not doing our job as teachers. So, okay, there you go. You can scan the QR code, and that will take you to my Facebook page. Contact me on Messenger if you want to discuss anything further, or if you just want to tell me hello. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now, and there you go.
Thank you, David. Thank you for your timing, exact timing.
Well, of course, I told you, very, very American.
Thank you. Okay. Well, it was very interesting, David. Your presentation, you share with us the past, the present, the actual. You highlight important aspects that really bother us, we teachers. You provide for us some solutions that can help us, we teachers. Still that some of them are easy, doable. Others are needs some reflection and many other things. I guess you agree with me.
Wait. What is it in French? Laissez le bon temps rouler.
Oui,
Laissez le bon temps rouler. Let the good times roll. Just do it. Do it and be happy.
No. We can, okay. If you want something, we can do it. I think that if the attendees want to ask questions for David, it is time to raise them.
Oh, and please call it a discussion. Debate makes me very uncomfortable.
Yeah, no, just okay, for discussion. Okay, let us discuss what was presented by David, and I think that they can ask. Well, myself, okay. One of the aspects that really interests me as a teacher concerns you've talked a lot about flexibility in the content and the material. I'd like that you clarify what do you mean exactly by flexibility, how to be flexible, because I have got something in my mind I want to share it with you. Yes, sir.
Okay, well, that is a beautiful question. I spent about 18 months working on a book with two other editors, critical pedagogy in Southeast Asia. And that was the theme within the whole book, flexibility. And, the teachers told us that, well, the Ministry of Higher Education says I have to teach this and this and this and this. Yeah, sure. But they're not telling you how. You have these goals to reach, but they're not telling you how. So you can be flexible. You can use different pedagogies to reach your education goals. And, it's quite simple. If you want to be flexible, just simply ask your students how they want to learn. That's what I do. Yeah. I said, you know, listen, I've been teaching for a long time. I learned this way, but what would you like to do? How would you want to learn? And I have to accept that because, you know, I'm over 50 years old. 20-year-old people do not learn the same way. So, yeah.
Thank you, David. I think that's it. By the end of your presentation, you highlight the what was brought from the coronavirus and the advantages that, of course, forced us to shift to hybrid learning. And I think flexibility is much more achieved via online learning, okay, that lectures now could fit different styles, different individuals, each one with his own way of learning. So I think that, yes, the flexibility in the content and in the material is one key element in any successful instruction and lecturing. Thank you, David.
Okay.
Others?
Good morning.
Yes, Fouzia?
It's Amal.
Amal.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning, Amal.
Hi, Radia. Good morning,
Yes.
everybody.
Good morning.
May I intervene?
Yes, you're welcome.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank you. I would like to thank the chair of the webinar, my colleague, Dr. Fouzia Rouaghe, for inviting me and for honoring me to be the honored guest of the webinar. I have really a great pleasure attending the webinar. I have to say first that ESP was not really, I was not really involved in this area until very recently, but now I'm getting involved and I really enjoyed the presentation made by Dr. David. And I would like to say that to focus on a point he has raised in his presentation, that teaching vocational English should focus on higher order skills. And I have been working on this area for many years now. I'm more interested in critical thinking and critical pedagogy. And I can say that there is an erroneous idea among teachers and even students that teaching higher order skills generally goes with higher levels of proficiency. So they are really astonished to hear about teaching critical thinking or using critical pedagogy with ESP students, because for them, these students have a lower level of proficiency. So teachers must focus on lower order skills, comprehension, knowledge, and this is all they need from English. But the point is that we can teach these higher order skills, evaluation, analysis, critical thinking, even for beginners. And the challenge now is what kind of activities can we use with these students to foster their higher order skills. I don't know whether the point is clear.
Okay, sure. I understand. Quite often, teachers tend to judge intelligence by proficiency, in which we know, that's not correct. But fostering higher order thinking skills, it's quite easy. The students do not need to be well versed in English to develop higher order thinking skills, because higher order thinking skills happens through task-based learning, through debate, discussion, collaboration. When they learn how to analyze, when they learn how to improvise, that's higher order thinking. And it has nothing to do with language proficiency. as long as they can complete the skills, and they can reasonably communicate what they did, or they have enough English, a higher enough level to where they can communicate and get their point across. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they need to be at a CEFR C2 level or C1 level. Higher order thinking skills can be clearly communicated even at an A2 level. So, I mean, you know, they do not need to be highly proficient to develop higher order thinking skills. So,
yeah, exactly. This is what I believe. That when you said they have to improvise, I think improvising, they need some vocabulary store and some basic language skills, which really help them improvise. So they must be at a better position to improvise and to come up with or to deal with the tasks that are set by the teacher. So it's I think it's really challenging for the teacher to integrate these skills for students who are struggling with expressing themselves in English.
well, my whole presentation, I simply focused on intelligibility and comprehensibility. And that happens even at a B2 level. So, or I'm sorry, a B1 level. No one says they need, you know, they do not need a 7.5 band IELTS to be able to practice higher order thinking. They just need to be able to taught how, they just need to be coached on how to do it. And they need to be given the opportunity to do it. And that right there is a bit of a sticking point, because sometimes teachers lack higher order thinking skills. And when their students become adapted in a higher order thinking, they start asking too many why questions. And the teachers, especially on this side of the world, the teachers tend to be a little uncomfortable if the students ask too many why questions, or what is the reason for this question. So yeah, and that's all the part of higher order thinking. Keep asking why until there's no more answers. So
Exactly.
well,
Thank you, David.
yes.
Thank you so
Yes, okay, my time must be up by now.
Yeah, logically
Okay.
it's over. Yeah, thank you for
Sure.
your presentation. It's really precious what you have shared with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Now it's time to invite our second keynote speaker, Professor Karen Ferreira Meyers. Have I spelled your name correctly? I'm sorry if I misspelled it.
You did a wonderful job. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. Okay, so our second keynote speaker will share with us her a presentation entitled "The Place of English in Francophone Tertiary Education Systems." Well, here, before giving you the floor, let me say some words about you. Professor Karen Ferreira Meyers lives and works in the Kingdom of Eswatini, Southern Africa. She is originally from Belgium. She arrived in Switzerland in 1990. She joined the University of Switzerland, which is called the University of Eswatini, in 1993, and became head of the Department of Modern Languages in 1998. She migrated to the Institute of Distance Education in 2010, where she is responsible for linguistics and modern languages. Karen holds 4 master's degrees degrees and a PhD in Francophone autofictional writing. Her research interests include the teaching and learning of languages, open distance and e-learning, autofiction and autobiography, crime and detective fiction, African literature. She has published widely over 100 articles and book chapters, as well as a book She's a keen translator and interpreter. Welcome with us. Wallah, it's a pleasure to have you with us. So the floor is yours, Professor Karen.
Thank you very much. It's really, I'm so honored to be here with all of you. So thank you for inviting me. I
Welcome.
really enjoyed Dr. David's presentation as well. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us to share research, to share experiences. I mean, it's important that we do that on a regular basis. Okay, I'm trying to put my all right, there we go. My presentation in slideshow mode. I hope that is clear now.
Yeah, it's clear. Yeah.
All
you're
right,
okay.
great. Excellent. Okay, so I would like to talk a little bit about the place of English in Francophone tertiary education systems. And you will see some of the things that Dr. David talked about will be echoed also in my presentation. So this is the brief overview of my presentation. I'm just trying to move this up here. So, of course, I will give a little introduction. I will talk about English, but also French as world languages and whether they compete or they have the possibility to collaborate. I have to talk about multilingualism and then about French, France in particular, and then I will broaden it a little bit to Francophone countries and the teaching and learning of English before I go into some kind of conclusion. Right. Let me see now. My slide don't want to move, so I'm going to do this again. It does that sometimes, so it's okay. No worries there. Let's see if this wants to cooperate with me now, and it does. Okay, so we all know that English and French, in addition to other world languages, and Arabic is definitely one of them, but so is Spanish, so is Mandarin Chinese, are major role players and stakeholder in education systems throughout the world. So I want to discuss a little bit about the position, the place, the predominance of English, even in French and Francophone tertiary education environments. And as we heard this morning, this is exactly what is going on in Algeria. So I think it's very interesting to contribute to that debate or discussion, as Dr. David would like to call it. So we can look at English from a practical perspective. For example, where is it taught, at which universities, in which type of programs, how many years, how many hours, how many credits are given to English programs or English courses. But we can also look at it from a more philosophical or ideological perspective. Why are we teaching English? Or as we heard before, it might even be an economic reason. But I want to tackle it from a more philosophical. Why is English taught? What are the ultimate goals of such teaching and learning? And as colleagues, scholars said in 2017 in France, linguistic plurality was seen to be contrary to the principles of state schools, because those ones were built on the principle of secular uniformity. And so that went together with that egalitarian discourse. We are all equal, so we must all learn the same, we must all speak the same language. So that is called unilingualism. And that was organized and accompanied by the use of French throughout France. Of course, this is from a historical perspective. Now, we need to note that attitudes towards English taught programs are different. Yeah, you have talked about it already. This is the case in Algeria. This is the case in many countries throughout the world. And so we know that they have two poles. They are polarized, completely opposed. On the one hand, we look at English as a unique and inevitable tool for the international spread of knowledge. And that's where we see that lots of scientific knowledge is published and disseminated in English. But on the other hand, we must look at languages as part of an ecology, as part of a group, as part of an ensemble of languages, where greater attention has to be given to the way English lives together, coexists with other national and foreign languages in our university programs. So to do so, we have to look at a couple of very important concepts, such as competition, collaboration, language or linguistic ecology, linguistic capital, but also pluri and multilingualism. And I'm going to look at them briefly before I go into another part of my presentation. So the key terms that I want us to briefly look at are linguistic repertoire. And this is defined as all the linguistic resources, all the language resources that people in a certain community have available, can use. So it's the knowledge of a variety of language or a variety of linguistic codes that are available to speakers to use every day to reach their communicative goals. So if we take the example of Algeria, we look at Algerian Arabic, we look at more classical Arabic, we look at French, and more, we also look at English. Then we need to look at multilingualism. You may know that in French, we make a difference between multi and plurilingualism. And slowly in English, this is also coming up. Now, in the French setting, multilingualism is when we look at a whole community, a whole people, while plurilingualism is looking at a particular individual. But in English, when we say that a speaker's linguistic repertoire has or combines knowledge of a couple of languages, 3 or more, then that person is classified as multilingual. But Kang said that multilingualism today is a global phenomenon, and we know that most people, if not all people, speak at least 2 languages. Now, what about English? You know, we're always, everybody is saying, okay, we need to have English. We can't survive without English. We need it in a globalized world. Now, what about English as a global language? Now, for a language to achieve the status of a global one, it has to be accepted and used by other countries worldwide. And that is the case of English. In most countries, in many countries, English is used. And even if that language is not an official language, just like the case in Algeria, it can be given priority in foreign language teaching in education. And you will see, we will go even beyond that when we look at English as a medium of instruction. So English can be considered as a global language because it's taught, it's spoken, it is used in a large number of countries throughout the world. Now let's look at linguistic capital, and something that is a little bit complicated maybe is the concept of glottopolitics. Now, linguistic capital, and in particular that of higher education institutions, so our universities, is the sum of resources and language abilities allowing the stakeholders, that is you, the teachers, the researchers, the students, the learners, to participate in different levels of knowledge flows. So it's the languages universities have at their disposal. The languages you speak when you teach, the languages the learners, the students have when they learn. Glottopolitics comes from sociolinguistics, and it's a concept that allows us to analyze the influence of power systems on a language or its use. Or as Chardonnay, who is a scholar of glottopolitics, said, it's the set of activities of institutions and social actors that have an impact on one or more languages. So in our case, using English in Algeria will have an influence on the other linguistic repertoires on the other educational languages used as a whole. So Bourdieu was the first one to look at linguistic capital, and he defined it as language that forms a kind of wealth. Yeah, the word capital says that. So we know that universities have that linguistic capital in the field of science, and it is composed of all those languages in which the stakeholder communities, but also the administrative staff, understand or express themselves. And that can be with partial or complete competence. It can be oral or written. So as Dr. David said, we don't have to go to a C2 level to have that linguistic capital. It's also all the languages in which available knowledge is expressed, printed, and more digitized. And that's where I also want us to start thinking about artificial intelligence. I won't touch upon it, but it's something that we need to keep in mind when it comes to language teaching and learning. Now, what about English as a medium of instruction? It is often abbreviated as EMI, so English medium instruction, and it has been defined in many ways. For example, the use of English language to teach academic subjects other than English itself in countries like Algeria, where the first language of the majority of the population is not English. And as I think Amel said, this is where it sometimes becomes difficult, because both the teachers, the lecturers, and the students are now having to work in a language that is not their first and often not even their second language. So it's often an additional language. But why are we using it in higher education? Well, again, combining what has been said previously, we know that today it is a preferred mode of communication. So that's why it's essential. But we might have different reasons for choosing English as a medium of instruction. And in front of you, you have some of these reasons. One of the reasons might be just to improve the learning and the usage of the English language. It might also be to provide a common language, a lingua franca, in the area of instruction in countries where we have multilingual populations. And definitely that is the case in Algeria. And I probably have forgotten also to mention the various Berber languages that exist on the territory and that are spoken as first languages by many Algerian citizens. It's also there to promote economic competitiveness. We've looked at that. To give students global literacy skills, because that means that they can then go and study in other countries. And also it enables us to attract international students, which indirectly might allow us to raise our university ranking. So that brings increase to our universities, increase of prestige. So competitiveness comes into play. And of course, we need to look at communication, because communication is the main issue when it comes to language teaching and learning. Regional, international, and especially intercultural communication, so that we better understand each other. So we've looked at glottopolitics. I don't think I want to go into this more. I think we can do that if time allows us, but I want to look a little bit at how research is disseminated. Now, we know that scholarly and academic publishing is dominated by English, and it is centered in the Anglophone regions. Now, if we say that there are 5 languages that account for more than 70% of all the world's scientific dissemination, and we're looking at 2008, I think the part of Chinese, Mandarin Chinese, has grown a lot in the last 1.5 decades. But if we say that those 5 languages, English, German, Chinese, Mandarin Chinese, Spanish, and French, account for that large chunk of scientific dissemination, there are very few researchers who manage to write and share their findings in more than one language. If they have English as their mother tongue, then it's easy for them or easier for them. But often that is not the case. So in order to construct and share knowledge, most of us will attempt to write in English, even if it's not our mother tongue. And then we use machine translation, which wasn't very good at the beginning, which has improved a lot, but which is still not ideal. Or we ask translator to come and help us translate our texts. Now, sometimes then we pay for translation, but sometimes we ask our plurilingual colleagues to assist, and that also comes with both advantages and disadvantages. Now, when we look, and I know this font is too small, so I'm briefly going to talk about it. What we are looking at today, what is happening today, is something that didn't occur at once. It kind of led to the Bologna process and internationalization, which in France led to the Fouzia law in 2013, which meant that teaching in languages other than French in higher education in France was allowed from then. And that's when we see a lot changing. So at the beginning of the 20th century, that internationalization was very slow. But after 1919, it became very much important, very much widespread, also because of the digital revolution. And English from then on can be seen as a hyper-dominant languages. Now, there is an important report from 2014, it's called the Wächter and Mayworth report, that places France with Spain, Portugal, and Italy as having a quantitatively low number of English taught programs. So this is where now I go into tertiary education in France in particular. So that's very interesting, because when we compare it to what happens to now, I mean, not even 10 years later, we see that that the number of programs and courses offered in English in France and in other Francophone countries has grown enormously. So how in France is language education organized? This is very common with other European countries, and so also with countries that were colonized by European countries, be they the UK, be they France, be they Belgium, be they Spain in a smaller, how can I say, a smaller influence group, or even Italian. But the French education system has this traditional distinction between modern and foreign languages. So modern languages, langue vivante, are opposed to classical languages, Greek and Latin. And so we find them, they are taught in the departments or in the faculties of humanities where literature and arts are looked at. And then we have a foreign language, langue étrangère, which is contrasted to the L1, the native languages, and then is taught in linguistics or education, but also taught and used in social sciences. So the same language, in our case for today, English, can be studied in an arts faculty because it conveys a certain culture of the countries where English is spoken, the US, the UK, Australia, South Africa, etc. Or in social sciences, where English then is a communicative tool that has to be acquired. So that also means that there is a different approach when it comes to teaching and learning. When we look at modern languages, the teaching is mainly traditional grammar translation. While when we look at foreign language instruction, which leads to a higher language proficiency, this is where we go to audiolingual methods, to communicative approaches, towards even the task-based learning that Dr. David also talked about. So in France, that brings us to the opposition of LLCE, Langue, Littérature et Civilisation pour l'enseignement, on the one hand, and on the other hand, LANSAD, Langue pour spécialistes d'autres disciplines. And on this slide, you basically have what I just explained, that important difference in approach and in content of language teaching and learning. So having that dual mode or that dual perspective leads to at least 3 different problems, and they have to do with the content and the impact of the teaching and learning. The first concern is the number of hours, because when we look at langue, culture et civilisation, there we expect the language learner to work on his or her own language proficiency. So this is something the language learner does in his or her own time, in his or her own way. It's the responsibility of the language learner. While when we look at LANSAT, so this is where language is learned for other disciplines, a small number of hours of instruction is given as well, but the focus is on language proficiency and on acquiring it within those hours. So the second issue is related to that and has us looking at instructional methods. So whether you look at transmission of culture in LLC, or you look at the development of a particular competence in LANSAD, our instructional methods will be different. And then the third one relates to the recent changes. And that recent changes means we now have learners that come to the university with very different levels of proficiency, with different abilities when it comes to even learning approaches, learning styles, learning needs. And this is also where we need to look at the blended learning, the hybrid learning, the online learning, and all the advantages. I am a proponent of that, but also disadvantages that comes with. So I'm coming towards the end of my presentation. I have no idea where I am with time, so I can go back if I still have some time left. But I want to summarize as follows. English, we know, is a widespread lingua franca, especially in the academic world, in the university world, and it has a powerful gatekeeping role. What does that mean? It means that if I don't use English appropriately or in a manner that is expected from me, then I might not be able to continue or to even start my studies, to continue my studies, and to get out of my studies with the skills that I need to work and to function in today's globalized world. I've looked a little bit more at the historical and current situation of English in a French university system, but we can say that whatever's happening in the French system has an impact on what happens in the Francophone world, be it Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, be it the sub-Saharan Francophone countries such as Mali, Gabon, Senegal, etc., Togo, Benin, etc., etc. Now, in the French system, the changes were often made on a politico-economical basis for marketing, for visibility, related to multi and plurilingualism, and for internationalization. That is the same in the Francophone countries, especially the ones that were colonized by France and Belgium, to name those 2 major colonizers who used the French language to do so. Today, we need to review and reassess language education. the notion of competence, the requirements and the standards that we put in place. Why? Because the demands of higher education have changed drastically. And also there are new academic communities that are constantly emerging. Language scholars, and they have been doing that so for quite some time now, but they continue to do so today, ask that we develop, we maintain, and we use different and diverse linguistic resources. So they are actually asking us to work towards better multilingualism, so that we can enhance access to higher education and research in that world that is ever changing. That doesn't mean that we should underestimate the tension that exists between the drive for programs in English and that multilingual perspective in our local contexts. And I think with that, here are some of the references I've used to prepare my talk for today. I would like to thank you for your attention and then, of course, open up to questions, comments, and suggestions. And I'm sharing my email address so that, as Dr. David said, you can also get in touch with me via email, preferably, but also social media. Thank you very much. And this is where I will stop sharing.
Thank you for your informative presentation. It was amazing. Wow, too amazing. You give us a clear image about languages in general, the state of those languages, dominating languages. When I say dominating languages, talking about French mainly in my country, yes. We were for Francophonie, and now we are for Anglophonie, if I can say this word, but still all languages are powerful, okay, whatever the language is, it is powerful in the setting it is applied in. Well, multilingualism and what has been derived from multilingual setting is creating a mixture and an interaction between languages. If you share this point with me, Professor, thank you again. If any of our guests want to ask and benefit from the experience of Professor Karen, you are welcome.
Yes, Radia, may I say a word?
Yeah, you're welcome, Fouzia.
So Karen, I'm very grateful to you. I was really impressed by your presentation. It's really compelling, and the topic you talked about is my area and my cup of tea. I just want to learn from the European experience, since EMI introduced into the higher education previously, I mean earlier. So according to our ministerial decision, our teachers who used to teach in Arabic or French have or are to teach in English the subjects matter. So we're Europeans at the time were qualified enough to teach the subjects matter in English. I mean, their level when, as regards English language, as well as teaching the subjects in English. So it's all the same.
Excellent question. No, they were definitely not. And I remember there was, I think it was called Défi, a program that was organized by the French government based in the Université de Bordeaux, so in Bordeaux University, where when that decision was taken in 2013, Défi was set up in 2014 to make sure that all university lecturers who were from then on supposed to be teaching in English, you know, different subjects, were taken through training. I think today that type of training is easier to roll out. because we can use online teaching and learning to help people, in particular university lecturers, to get the necessary skills. I think it's the responsibility of the government, of the Ministry of Education, when they take those political decisions, to also make sure that they accompany the university lecturers by giving them adequate training, by assisting them, by holding their hand as much as possible. So I think that is extremely important. And so no, in Europe, people were not ready. It took some time, which is normal. It's getting better. Is it working throughout? I don't think so, but we are on that direction and we keep going.
Nice. So my second question, who trains who?
All right, who trains who? Okay, you need a team of lecturers who are trained to teach English to non-Anglophones. So in my point of view, there have to be two components. There has to be the component on English proficiency, and then there has to be the component on teaching in English to non-Anglophones, because we can't expect our learners, our students, to immediately switch to English either. They also need that time to get there.
Yeah.
So that needs to go hand in hand. So ESP specialists, definitely, for both lecturers and students.
Were they French or were they Brits?
I think there was a combination. I think in that first DEFI organization, they were British, but very soon they used local competencies. I mean, there had been over the past people trained at high levels to teach English, language and literature, but also to teach in English. So that combination, I think, is very much needed.
Of course, I've got a lot of many questions, but I'd like to give the floor to other participants if everybody have questions to ask.
And we can keep on talking. You know how to get hold of me. As David said, you're very good at intercultural communication, so we'll keep on doing that.
A lot of questions. One of I mean,
I think that Fouzia, Zine Emel has got a question. Okay.
Well,
Dr.
good morning,
Zine.
everybody.
Hi.
Thanks, dear presenter, for the amazing presentation. I just want to add a few words to what Fouzia has just said about Englishizing, this new tendency in the Algerian universities. They want to Englishize the Algerian or the university life. Meanwhile, we lack this training. And just to add to the question, who trains who? Is it a matter of it should be a kind of native speakers who should interfere in this process? Adding to that, in our case in Algeria, we have what we call general English. We have this ESP, and we have this ENT, the newly trending, this new approach at university, the EMI, I said, English as a medium of instruction. Which is a priority? Is it that ESP or English as a medium of instruction? Because they have something, they are different somehow when we come to practice. Thank you very much.
Excellent. I think, we can all think about that together. As I said, I think you need two types of competencies, and so possibly also two types of expertise. If they come combined in one person or in one group of persons, perfect. But I think, as you said, experts in ESP are not necessarily experts in EMI and vice versa. So having a group of, we know today that training people should be a collaborative done in a collaborative approach. So putting a team together with different types of experts and having them lead the training, because again, knowledge happens, or knowledge building, knowledge construction happens through collaborative work. You as a university lecturer, you come with a vast amount of knowledge, expertise, experience. Putting all that together is, in my view, what would work best. So drawing on different experts, bringing them together, designing something where knowledge sharing can work. So native English speakers, they are not necessarily needed. They can bring an added advantage, but that is not the first priority, in my opinion. I hope I've answered your question, but I
Excellent.
think more debate is needed.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Dr. David, we always need you.
Discussion. Yes, me too. Okay, I agree with you, Professor Karen. Yes, well, here being an expert in one field is not necessary. Well, we can say he's an expert. Well, it is collaborative work. We need to work together. Okay,
Yes.
work together, and we can overcome the classroom issues and solve whatever problem face us. But keeping working one in each side. I'm an ESP, he is a specialist in one field. I think that it can work, but it cannot lead us or move. We cannot move forward rapidly.
Radia, can I add a question?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to steal your experience.
The last question. Okay, Fouzia.
The last Robins, I'm going to rob something. So Karen, let me know, there are some prep schools in European universities before. Do they exist? Which is not the case.
Yes. Yes, there are preparatory schools in many systems, and I think it's coming more and more. I know that in Southern Africa as well, because what we see is I'm going to say the quality, even though that's a contentious word, but the quality of the students that come into our first year programs is not really what we expect. Or perhaps us as university lecturers, we are not able to adapt to the new type of learners that we get. So often we see the need for some kind of remedial or preparatory type of schools or settings. I'm not sure if this is the way to go. I think it needs to be a combination of perhaps getting our students to have more critical skills when they enter the university, but also accompanying university lecturers to better welcome this new type of students. And our expectations must change. What we used to want from a university student doesn't work anymore. The world has changed. We need them to have different skills, different competencies. And one of these groups of skills and competencies are the digital ones, the ones that allow them to participate in a Zoom meeting, to critically ask questions in a digital environment. So we don't need to train them in a similar way as we used to. We really need to change that.
So we need just a new generation in order to start, including.
Well, I mean, yes, but we mustn't go against the ones we have. The generation we have is a well-trained generation. Yes. Yeah, that just needs to tweak some of the ways we interact. But we have all that experience. We have all that knowledge. We need to be there.
But the existing generation is resistant to change. And that's the difference.
I know. That's where some of the problems lie. Definitely.
But if I can say something, I think that yes, the generation we are dealing and working with, is ready for every change, and I think that we teachers, we are not ready for the changes. Okay. Yeah. Well, when talking about the digital world, the digital communication, they are well trained. we are not going to find difficulties to deal with them.
Mm.
They want such a learning, okay? They prefer this learning because they are born within this new environment.
Yes, true.
Just,
So there's all reluctance, as Karen just said, to change. And what's the point that I'd like to emphasize is when English is always taught within the classroom walls, it could never be spoken outside. So it remains always a foreign. This is why we need something either, okay, I'm very happy when I see this generation to talk TikTok and WhatsApp language, but we need to move some academic language. Yeah, they're good at particular language that is not really suitable in the academic setting, but we have to raise the awareness that the language they use, it has to be refined, or let's say, sophisticated in order to use it in the classroom. So English remains always foreign if it's taught in artificial setting. And that's the point that we should know. Even in the higher education, if it's not spoken outside, communication doesn't take place outside. In Algeria, for instance, people who speak French, they seem prestigious, they seem highly educated, even though they are illiterate. Was one reason they speak English, actually they get all the respect. But once English is spoken, people are like, whoa, what are you just showing off? Why are you speaking English outside? Speaking English on the ground, speaking English in the hospital. So since this idea, since the ideology is always stuck, so I guess that EMI or any kind of English in higher education would be quite challenging in the next few years.
Sure, yeah, sure, Fouzia. Thank you, Fouzia.
You're welcome. Radia, I guess the next speaker, Wafa, is struggling to log in. Unfortunately, yeah, she cannot get in, or I mean, log in the Zoom.
Yeah, we move to the next speaker.
Tony is around. Tony is here.
Well, I will check. Let me check.
Tony, no, it's
Tony?
Yeah, no, Tony is teaching.
He's teaching too.
Yes, he's teaching now in Turkey. So we move to
We
Emel.
move to Zine. Emel Zine? Yes, sir.
I already informed her.
Yeah, Emel? Are you here, Emel? Dr. Emel Zine?
Emel,
Yes, I'm following. Yes, I'm trying to share my...
Wallah. Yes, Dr. Emel Zine, welcome.
Hello,
we invite you. Dr. Emel Zine will present or will share with us a presentation entitled Crossing the Boundaries of Uncharted Land of ESP, playing the role of course designer and material provider. Well, let me introduce, before you start, Emel, okay, I want to say, introduce you to our guests. Dr. Emel Zine is an assistant teacher in didactics and ESP teaching at the University of Msila, Algeria. She got her magister certificate in ESP with a focus on English for business purposes from Mohamed Lamine de Barine, University of Stephen. Her fields of interest include ESP, EAP, genre analysis, and writing for research purposes. Today, she will present for us or share with us her expertise via this presentation entitled Crossing the Boundaries of the Uncharted Land of ESP, playing the role of course designer and material provider. The floor is yours, Anna.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So happy to join this intellectual event. Mainly, that's the core theme is ESP and issues in ESP, local and international. The title of my presentation is Crossing the Boundaries of the Uncharted Land of ESP, playing the role of course designer and material provider. You know that this environment, ESP as such, is new, let's say, context for EFL teachers. And whenever they have a chance to teach in this new environment, they are somehow reluctant dwellers. Let's see why they are so. Just to move to the introduction. Why ESP teachers feel reluctant as a new, let's say, whenever they have a chance to teach in a new environment called ESP. Because unlike other pedagogical approaches, this ESP is highly needs-based, and it places heavy demands on its practitioners. Why? Because they have to perform different roles, not only this the familiar role that we are acquainted with, which is teaching, but these roles extend to include other roles, being a needs analyzer, a course designer, a material provider, an evaluator, an ongoing researcher. So these roles may just add to the load of being a teacher in this, like I said in my title, uncharted land. Why teachers are so reluctant? Because they are not